Hi everyone, I'm Celeste. Welcome to my BookTube channel. Well, today I wanted to just pop on to share a neat new tag that's starting to go around BookTube, and I believe it's called the 12 Days of Christmas and Coziness tag. This was apparently started by a woman called Elli, and then was also done by Gina, and then Kate Howe, and I will be sure to post all of their channel addresses in the comments below, so feel free to look for their channels too and check them out. 12 Days of Christmas and Coziness. I hope I'll do it at least some justice, but it just sounded like a lot of fun. You know, when it comes to the holidays, we don't always have a huge amount of time to read in the days leading up to Christmas because we're so busy cooking and baking and decorating the tree and getting family together and last minute shopping and all of those things. So, you know, to find time to lounge around reading, at least for me, is not always a possibility, although I do try to make time for that every day. But I thought that this was a really neat challenge because this takes place from Christmas and then going forward through the 12 days of Christmas, when perhaps we'll have a little bit more time. And so it just sounded really neat, and I wanted to participate. So, okay, the prompts. Boxing Day, I believe, is the first. So gift yourself a relaxing, cozy moment after the busy holidays. So the first challenge is light a candle. I can do that. Read a cozy mystery for 30 minutes. So in terms of my TBR, I think one that might be a good one for this is P.D. James' Mistletoe Murder and Other Stories. I purchased this a while back, and I know it's made the rounds on BookTube, but I haven't gotten to it yet, and I finished my first Adam Dalgliesh mystery this past fall. I loved it, and so I'm really looking forward to dipping into this one. And of course, again, it's got the beautiful cover art by Angela Harding, whom I love. So P.D. James, The Mistletoe Murder. And then the next challenge is to create a personal 12-day bookish journal. Write every day your favorite quotes, your thoughts about your reads, your experiences, etc. So I thought this was quite doable because, you know, I do keep a regular journal, but I really loved so much the idea of just having like a little yearly journal for the 12 days of Christmas, in terms of being like a reading log or just thoughts at the holidays, things like that. What a great idea. Mine is really small. I did make this myself, and it's more of a notepad than what you might think of as a journal, but hey, I think it counts. So here's mine. I'll just hold it up for you here. I do paper crafting, and I do love to make little notebooks and journals. So this is just a very simple one with some memo pad paper inside, and then I just put a little green satin bow on the front of it there. I'll just open it up for you here. It's got a different paper on the inside. So I just thought for each of the 12 days I could take one page and just write a few thoughts. And wouldn't it be neat to do this every year and then have a little collection of these tiny notebooks in a holiday basket or something? So yeah, that's my little memo pad. And then the third challenge on the 12 Days of Christmas and Coziness is to peruse a cozy cookbook. So for this one, I had actually been down in the basement clearing out a box, and I came across this really antique cookbook that my mother had given me a long time ago. And it's the Cosmopolitan Cook and Recipe Book. Isn't that just fabulous? Look at that. The cover's a bit torn, so I'm going to try to be very careful here. And when you open it up, what I found was on the first page, the end page, you can see the calendar for the year. And just look at that. So this is dated 1882. And then as you go through it, I just bookmarked a spot here. I want to touch it as little as possible because it is falling apart. But local ads that were put in this cookbook, including one for a street downtown, and it's Trotter, Geddes and Company, furnaces, stoves, ranges, cooking utensils, etc. And you can see the old antique stove there. And then the pages are just full of old-time recipes, how to make bread puddings and roasts and grits, and ginger snaps, snow cake. Lots of fun, festive sounding things are in here. And what was really incredible that was in this book as well, and I'm going to be very careful showing you these, there was this envelope, what there is left of it. And this is actually one of my ancestors that this is addressed to. And inside was a letter. And it's written on letterhead from Roland Brother Cabinet Makers Hardware and Upholstery Goods. And it's dated Montreal, November 2nd, 1890. Just incredible. And I'll just hold it up to show you the writing. So what a treat that was. And it's just so interesting. It's all about a trip to Montreal. And I come in part from a family of furniture makers. And so it's really interesting how Joseph, who wrote the letter, is describing the furniture that he sees when he's up at this factory in Montreal, Quebec, and what piece he wants to bring home for his wife. And he's talking about the mohair and the way the legs are carved and all of that, and he's describing his day in town and the sights that he saw. So it was just really a neat treat to find some ephemera inside this antique Cosmopolitan cookbook. So I'm going to be enjoying spending some time going through that after Christmas when I've got a bit of time. Okay, so prompt number 4 is read something short each day during the 12 days of Christmas. Now for this one, I'm torn between two choices. Maybe I'll get to both of them. The first is Agatha Christie's Midwinter Murder, and this is a collection of fireside tales from the Queen of Crime. And it's got a Miss Marple story in here that I really, really love, and that is Christmas Tragedy. And then there's also, of course, Poirot's Christmas Adventure, and a bunch of others as well. So what a cool cover, eh? So I'm going to be enjoying that. And then another one that I'll probably dip into, like I do every year at this time, is Mary Stewart's Frost on the Window and Other Poems. And this is from Hodder. This is an older volume. I've begun collecting the new Hodder editions of all the Mary Stewart novels. But what you don't see quite so often is her poetry. And some of it is just really beautiful and kind of bleak and gothic, and it really conveys the coldness and the dreariness, but also the beauty and magic and mystery of winter. And yeah, she wrote poetry. And this also has lots of little line drawings in it. Let me see if I can find you one here. Here's a poem called The Circle, which begins, I cut my finger on a thorn. So it's full of little illustrations like that. And the poem Frost on the Window is a beautiful poem. I'm really glad that that's included and that she titled the collection with that poem, because that's really a flagship poem in here. So look for this as a used book on eBay or another used book site. Really good. And then challenge number 5. Read a children's book or a fairy tale, maybe something you enjoyed as a child. Well, these aren't fairy tales, but they're really great anyway. The first one is a favorite of mine from childhood, and that is The Wolves of Willoughby Chase by Joan Aiken. Isn't this just a fantastic cover? I absolutely love this cover. It's really memorable, brings back a lot of good times for me from my childhood, reading this in the school library. And look at the illustrations in here. And this is the story of a group of children that are sent to Willoughby Chase. Bonnie's parents left them in the care of the terrible Miss Slycarp, and they didn't know what the future would hold. Their life at Willoughby Chase seemed almost unendurable, but then Miss Slycarp sent them off to her sister, brutal Mrs. Brisket, and her daughter, the awful Diana. Let's see, and it's little Bonnie, her sweet cousin Sylvia, and their faithful friend Simon. So it's kind of tongue-in-cheek humor, but it's also very suspenseful in a Victorian sort of way. And so this is a favorite of mine. This is a vintage copy that I found on eBay, but there are many different editions available. And then the other book I was thinking of for this prompt was Dickens at Christmas. And this, I believe, is from Vintage. Let me take a look here. Pretty sure. Oh, and look at the beautiful end papers. Very festive. And this contains, yes, this is from Vintage. This contains quite a few excerpts from Dickens, from the Pickwick Papers, A Christmas Carol, The Chimes, one of my favorites, The Cricket on the Hearth, The Haunted Man, and then it's some little vignette scenes, a Christmas tree, a Christmas dinner, and more. And at the beginning of each section, there's just lovely little illustrations. So I really love the artwork on this edition. There's some foiling in the front there, and you're seeing the store window, the shop window. So, and it's a nice chunky book. So, but you don't have to read it cover to cover because it's all little individual pieces. So that would be perfect for this cozy challenge. Oh, and look what the person on eBay that I ordered this from, look what they sent with it. Just a cute little card with Greta Garbo, and I absolutely love Greta Garbo as an actress. And she was just thanking me for my purchase. So I just thought that was a really neat little movie card. Bonus. Okay, and then the next challenge is enjoy playful activities like doing a jigsaw puzzle, a Lego, or some crafting. So I'm going to hold off on this one and do it at the end of this presentation because I chose crafting. And so I really wanted to share a couple of the crafts with you. So we'll save some time at the end for that. But next, number 7, read a vintage Christmas book or an older book. Again, I have 2 contenders here. So this one is Hilda Lewis, A Mortal Malice. This is an old used paperback. It was published by Arrow Books. Look at that cover art. And I'm going to read you the little blurb on the back. And this was recommended by Allison Ware. Okay, Hilda Lewis, A Mortal Malice. Who murdered Sir Thomas Overbury in the Tower of London? One of that bloodstained building's greatest mysteries, equaled only by the earlier fate of the little princes. The court of James I, the great family of Howard, intrigue for influence and power. Bitterly opposed to them is Sir Thomas Overbury. He's imprisoned in the Tower, and in the Tower he dies. That much is certain. All else is mystery. But now, the author, Hilda Lewis, suggests an answer to this enthralling historical conundrum. And so this starts out in the winter time, and it's cold, and you're in the Tower of London with the prisoners, and you're solving a mystery of who killed Thomas Overbury. And set during the Tudor era. So cool, and the writing is supposed to be exquisite. So this is supposed to be an old forgotten gem, according to Alison Ware. I was very hard pressed to actually find this copy. I couldn't find anything new, and I wanted this cover art because I just fell in love with it. And I finally did find a copy online used, and so I'm really looking forward to that. And then another older book. It's not a Christmas book, but I believe part of it will take place at Christmas. I haven't read it yet. But the other possibility is part of the Cathedral trilogy, Elizabeth Goudge, A City of Bells. And I believe this is a series of books, and this is the first one in the trilogy. And so I'll read you the little description for this. Returning injured from the Boer War, Jocelyn Irvine travels to the quiet cathedral town of Torminster. Welcomed there by his young cousin Hugh Anthony, his grandparents, and their adopted daughter Henrietta, Jocelyn begins to rediscover his enjoyment of life. As he embraces old friendships and new relationships, Jocelyn becomes captivated by the mystery of writer Gabriel Ferrante, a man whose unexplained disappearance months before has cast a shadow which only his return can lift. A charming story of love, family, and laying to rest ghosts of the past. So I've seen lots of people on BookTube chatting about Elizabeth Goudge, and so I've been wanting to get started in this trilogy myself for quite a while, and I think this would be the perfect time to do that in the 12 days of Christmas. So Elizabeth Goudge. Okay, challenge number 8. Watch an old movie or musical. Well, it's not a musical, but it is an old movie, and it's such a tradition here in New York State every year at Christmas time, and that is to watch the Frank Capra classic, It's a Wonderful Life. And you may or may not know this, but in the area near me, in a place called Seneca Falls, that's supposed to be the town that the mythical Bedford Falls in the movie is based on. And every year in Seneca Falls, they actually have an It's a Wonderful Life winter festival. I'm really hoping to go one of these years. But of course, I'm going to be watching It's a Wonderful Life. Okay. Challenge number 9, read a historical fiction book. Again, I've got a tie for this one between two. Now this one I just picked up. This is Monk's Hood by Ellis Peters. And of course, this is the fabulous Brother Cadfael Chronicles. I know we say Cadfael, but did you know that the actual pronunciation was supposed to be Cadfael? Anyway, I've been reading this. I did start reading it already, and the writing is just wonderful. She has a very interesting sense of pacing in her narrative, and her descriptions are just fantastic. She's talking about Brother Herbert, who's been called away, and he's riding away, and he's elderly, and he's tired, and he's in the saddle looking like a sack that's only half full and kind of leaning to one side. She has such a beautiful creative eye for detail, and I'm really appreciating the writing of Ellis Peters. Also, this one takes place in December, so what a fantastic time to pull it off the shelf. And of course, I love the adaptations that are available on Audible. And of course, I love the series on public television starring Derek Jacobi. Those are just incredible. And I love the music too. So everything about it I love. Who am I kidding? So that's one contender. The other one I was thinking of is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. Now this is quite a hefty book. I've seen the movie starring Sean Connery and love that, and I know there's a new series available too, and I did watch the first episode of that, and that looks really good as well. They're both a little bit different from each other. There's something to be drawn from each different interpretation of the script. The writing in this book is beautiful, and so I may decide to dip into this. We'll see. I'm definitely already starting Brother Cadfael, so we'll see. Okay, what's next? Prompt number 10, enjoy a cozy tea time. Bonus if you share your tea with a friend. Well, I'll definitely be doing that. That goes without saying. Number 11, celebrate the 12th night and discover a new exciting book for 2023. Try a chapter from a book that's been lingering on your TBR. This is not a new book, but it's new to me. I picked up a vintage copy of Rumour Godden in this House of Brede. And so I'm really wanting to check this out and see if I enjoy it. I believe this is the January pick for Virago's Book Club, and they also have a very fine edition of In This House of Brede. So I may get that as a reading copy, but I do love this hardcover edition. And look at the cover. It's just gorgeous. Look at the colors in that. One of the things I really appreciate about vintage book art is the palette that's used and the tones that were used at the time. And also look inside the end pages of this. They have a map of Brede Abbey. Isn't that fabulous? And it's repeated on the back cover as well. So I think I'm probably going to try to give this a read in January. Okay, and then number 12, if you fancy, bake your own cake to celebrate. Well, at this time of the year, I love to make gingerbread with homemade whipped cream. Now, I have celiac disease, and so I have to have things that are gluten-free. And so that's the way I bake entirely. You can adapt really good gluten-free recipes for gingerbread, and there are some really fine flours available out there now. One that I prefer is called Cup for Cup, and you simply replace the regular flour with that flour and then follow the recipe as it's written, other than that. So I think I'm going to make myself a delicious spicy gingerbread and then put some nice dollops of homemade thick whipped cream on top of it. Maybe I'll warm it up first and then put the whipped cream on top. So doesn't that sound good? Okay, we've come to the final challenge. Hold the phone. Well, normally at this time of the year, I love to do some paper crafting for Christmas. I like to make things out of paper, and I've recently been revisiting my oversized reading copy of Little House in the Big Woods. This is a favorite of mine from childhood. And I know there's a lot that's controversial about Laura Ingalls Wilder now, but I still think it's a terrific piece of writing, and still very worthwhile and relevant if given in the proper context in a school discussion. And some of my favorite scenes were the winter scenes. There's some beautiful illustrations in here by Garth Williams. And to go along with that, I've done some paper crafting in past years. So I'm pulling out some crafts that I did last year at this time for Christmas. And the first one is called a German or Bavarian Putz House. And this is a little snow cabin that I made. It's made out of paper. And you can see I have a little flickering votive tea light inside. The door actually does open, but I don't want to drop the entire thing here on camera, so I'll just leave it shut for now. The windows are made out of vellum. And this is a Tim Holtz design. So if you Google Tim Holtz, you'll find out all about his stencils and molds and cutting dies and how to make the little cabin in the woods. This is corrugated paper that I distressed to give it a snow-like look, but if you look inside you'll see it's paper. And of course I have a little pine tree to go with it. Sometimes I also like to print out a quote from a book like Little House and put it underneath the cabin. Then the fire was shining on the hearth, the cold and the dark and the wild beasts were all shut out, and Jack the brindle bulldog and Black Susan the cat lay blinking at the flames in the fireplace. Ma sat in her rocking chair, sewing by the light. So I also did last year a bunch of little odds and ends, holiday bookmarks and winter bookmarks that I sent to people through the mail as gifts, using a lot of found objects and findings from fabric stores, and bits of paper, scraps, glue, chipboard, ribbon, buttons, old bits of jewelry and earrings, and I just love gluing all kinds of things together and making some festive bookmarks for the season. So for this project, you're going to need some scraps of Christmassy paper, a ruler, a hole punch, a pencil, some random scraps of ribbon, some pieces of thin chipboard. This was cut from the back of a cheap spiral notebook. I usually cut them from 7 inches long by maybe 2 inches wide. Some large festive tacks or brads, a pair of scissors, a tape runner, some cute assemblage pieces. These are jewelry findings from our local craft store. Here I have a crown. And last year I used this crown on top of a fox's head to make Reynard the King of the Forest for a festive bookmark that I made. And finally, if you're able to find it, this hole punch is very handy. You can take your bookmark once you've glued with the tape runner your decorative papers, and you can put it in here, and when you punch it and you take it out, now it's got this shape. And then you're simply going to take one of your tacks and some of your ribbon and sort of wrap it around it, and the finished result should be a double-sided bookmark, something like one of these that I've made. And you can see that they're two-sided. You can put stickers on them if you like. Here's one that has some nice sheet music, Carol of the Holly. However, you can also do these for any season, any reason. And I've often thought that it would be neat to use this particular bee charm and make a bookmark using this Harlequin paper on one side and this sunflower paper on the other, and then embellishing it with the bee at the top, and perhaps the gold cord or some gingham would be really neat too, and that would be more of a country bookmark. I was thinking, wouldn't it be so neat to make some little homemade, homespun bookmarks for a friend, and then if you got a little gift bag, which is the perfect size for a book, this would make a great little gift for the Scandinavian book giving and book reading holiday. I believe it is called Yola Boca Flod, which literally means Christmas book flood. So you could take a little gifty bag such as this one and arrange some handmade bookmarks in it and put a book in that will fit, such as this one. Okay, so that could go in there. And then what if we put these bookmarks arranged in the back? I'll hold this up for you in just a sec. Like so. And then maybe stick in a decorative pen, perhaps your little notebook, or anything else you can think of, a really nice gourmet chocolate bar. Put a little tissue paper behind it, put that in there, and you'll have a really neat Yola Boca Flod gift. Well, that's all the time I have for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. As usual, let me know in the comments down below, what are your books that you would choose for this prompt? What kind of cake would you make? What old movie will you be watching? What vintage holiday books or winter books will you be pulling out for the 12 days of Christmas? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, get out there, enjoy the day, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.